start working. Maybe? Hey, finally got it figured out. Oh my goodness. Alright. Let's get some freaking particulate filters going here. 27, yes please. Now that I've spammed everybody 14 times with my notification on Discord, which is fantastic by the way. I need to start, I hate it, but it's going to have to be a thing that happens. I'm going to have to start doing more stuff on the internet. I've been a little more active on Reddit, and that's great. I actually need to start. What are you doing? Why are you not turning on? You son of a beach. Why does everything turn off when this stupid Coriolis storm starts? This shit is annoying. Also, I think I'm gonna probably need build more input storage for this. Let's see here real quick. Where are we at? Oh yeah, definitely need more input storage for that. So let's plunk that bad boy down. Do input circuit 3. That ought to be good. I've got like well over 1,000 aluminum going right now. And a bunch of silicone and all that stuff, so got a lot of things going on. Also, we're gonna have tons of these. We're getting 27 of these going. I have 5, I think. Yeah, we got 5 of these bad boys up here. So, nope, we have 6 of these bad boys up here. That's almost 5 apiece. Put up 4 apiece plus 1 in a couple. We're trying to get up to somewhere between 8 and 10, I think. That is going to require some additional of these. I'd like to have 1 of these 100k cisterns per water catcher that we have. So I'd like to have 8 to 10 water catchers and 8 to 10 cisterns. I pretty much have a lot of this stuff. Let's see. So I have enough calibrated servos to get to 8 cisterns if I already have 6. So I can put up 2 more cisterns pretty easy. So then I just need 4 more of these bad boys here. So I need to go ahead and do this because I almost filled up. I have 478,000 milliliters of water storage. When I logged on earlier today after sleeping, I had 420 something thousand milliliters of water stored. So not having 1 for each one really put me at kind of an almost bad position where I was just losing water. But now we're back up to 32k. I've already done some other stuff. Already gotten a bunch of duraluminum ingots in, but this is really what this is all about, is just getting duraluminum for the infrastructure. That's why we're making all this aluminum stuff. So yeah, let's go get some grinding done. I think I've pretty much used up most of my resources here. You know, I've got 1,000 aluminum in the cooker, so I had like 9,000 aluminum ore. Now I only have none. I have none aluminum ore. And I think I've got plenty of jasmium because the aluminum isn't done yet, so I've got 1,000 worth, yeah. We definitely need to pick up some more aluminum so that later today, when we get a bunch more water and stuff, we can go back into that. I think we're probably using up most of my flour sand. We're probably using up most of my erythrite. We haven't really used up all the stravidium. Well, we've used up all the stravidium, but we haven't used up any of the titanium. So we do have some titanium that needs to be turned into plastanium. We might want to go ahead and trigger that, just see how much we're going to get. Um, a lot of what we're doing right now has basically nothing to do with the deep desert. There is a reason for that, and the reason for that is that the deep desert is bricked right now. Just completely and totally bricked. All of the plans that Funcom had for the deep desert don't work unless you have a good system for um, the factions. Unless you have a good way to keep the factions actively working together, then your whole faction system falls apart, which means your Landsrad system falls apart, which means, I mean, your entire deep desert experience falls apart if the factions aren't working. And so right now the factions are totally bricked. And so that means that the deep desert does not operate as intended. There are lots of people out there who disagree with me. I've been talking in Reddit and, chatting all over the place, talking to people about how the deep desert faction system needs to be fixed. There were a bunch of people in my old guild who thought I was insane for thinking that this was a faction warfare game. Just constantly arguing with so many people about the faction system in this game and how it's broken and how it being broken bricks literally the rest of the competitive aspects of this game. And a lot of you absolutely disagree with me, and that's fine. You're allowed to be wrong. You can have whatever incorrect opinion you want to have, but you are wrong. The faction system being bricked is really the only problem with this game outside of hacking and exploiting and stuff like that. Obviously, there's hacks. Obviously, there's exploits, and fixing the faction system isn't going to fix that. But fixing the faction system fixes basically everything else. So, at least from an in-game mechanics standpoint. Let's go ahead and put these in there. Nice.
Charles Gilbert says hydrate hermit.
Hydrate, you bastard. Hydrate. Do you mean my character needs to hydrate? My character does need to hydrate. Full deciliter, John. Totally dying of dehydration. Thank you, Charles. Charles in charge of our days and our nights. Charles in charge of our wrongs and our rights. If it wasn't for you, I would be lying here dead on the floor right now. You ever watch the old Scrubs? With those Foolios with their... Why does it say that this has 8 filters? It doesn't have 8 filters. It has 5 filters. We got tons of filters now, though. I don't even have to give a shit about these things out here for like 2.5 days now. Which is just fantastic, because I don't want to give a shit. I'm a big fan of not giving a shit. That one can't take any more. That one can take another one. That one can't take any more. That one can take another one. That one can take another one. Nice. Alright, so I just need one more for this one, but that's fine. It's still got over 2 days. It's got 2 days and 11 hours. We got lots of spice going on. I mean, I guess we don't have a ton of spice going on. But I think we've got like 80 or 90 spice. Ooh, 103 spice. Hey. Hitting it. Hitting it. Let's see what's going on with the lands red. Well, I say we, I'm not actually a part of anything. Show them refining contract. By the decree of the Lands Red Council under the sea. Repair costs and refining times reduced by 75%. Wow, wee. Weird to me that they're picking this. My server or my world is such a PvE world. We have all these damage types and stuff out here. Nobody's picking them. Nobody cares. Fuck that. We want refining times. What a bunch of silly geese. Well, let's repair that. Why not? And, let's repair this too. That's fine. For that. Do I have the ability to unlock this Holtzman shield? Yeah, I do. Alright, let's unlock that so I can actually repair my Mark V Holtzman shields. Because goodness. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. So I saw something today. People are getting all mad in PvP. I just saw you making those filters and realized that I forgot to put more filters in my wind traps last night. Probably ran out. Oh no! How are you going to survive without your automatic water? So I was getting on the internet today. Let's talk a little bit about what the internet has to say about Dune. Because I gotta tell y'all, some people shouldn't be allowed to have opinions. They're fucking dumb. There was a person on Reddit today who was talking about how they're super angry that you can put away and take out your rocket thopter, your rocket scout thopter, when you get attacked when you're out farming. So their whole contention is that you can take an assault ornithopter out there with storage and stuff like that, and they're mad because you can pocket a rocket thopter, and then when they attack you and you can't attack back, you can just break out your rocket thopter and fight them. And there was like a whole uproar in the Reddit today about how that's totally broken and you shouldn't be allowed to put away and take out your rocket thopter from your backup tool. And that just goes to show you the general mentality of players in these games. Players don't want equivalent combat. Right? Players aren't looking for PvP. They're looking for advantages. And anytime they identify an advantage, and then you smooth out that advantage so that it's more equitable and more even, they get mad because now they might actually have to play the game instead of just taking shit from everyone else. Ooh, stuff in my throat. And I normally wouldn't care. I would just let the crybabies cry. But the problem is they're extremely loud. And it's not just the PvE players, right? Or the PvP players. It's the PvE players too. The whiner baby PvE players are also the reason that we got an expanded PvE version of the Deep Desert that is just a pile of garbage. Because they don't understand the problems that they're facing, right? They run into issues in the Deep Desert and they don't have the understanding or the experience either playing games or developing games or whatever it is to fully recognize the depth of the issue and where the root of the issue is. And so they see that one little branch of the issue that's directly affecting them, like, you know, your neighbor when one branch of your tree extends out over the top of their yard and they think, oh, well, all I have to do is cut this tree branch down. Well, no, because there's still a whole ass fucking tree. It'll just grow a new tree branch over your yard. You have to get with your neighbor and say, hey, I really hate your tree growing into my yard. You either cut the tree down or relocate it or literally any other option, because if you don't, you're just going to be complaining about a new branch of the tree in your yard in, you know, a week or whatever when it grows again. Obviously, trees don't grow that fast, but you get my point. People are stupid. Personally, I think devs should have stuck to their guns, not changed damn thing. Well, so that's also not accurate. Because the devs made significant mistakes in their implementation of their intended systems. Right? There's supposed to be a faction system, and you're supposed to work with the other members of your faction to secure Landsrat victories. That is intended gameplay. You are not supposed to all be on the same team and everybody get the Landsrat or the Landsrat resources, and stuff like that. And so you can't just say, F you bought the game, you know, play it like it is and shut the fuck up. But you can't listen to players' solutions. You have to listen to their problems, right? If there's a tree hanging over into your neighbor's yard, or a tree branch hanging over into your neighbor's yard, and your neighbor tells you, I hate this branch, cut it down, you could cut it down and listen to their solution to the problem. Or you could hear the actual problem, which is the tree branches in the way. And then as the owner of the tree, who can see the entirety of the tree and understands what's going on with the tree, you can say, well, cutting down that branch isn't going to do anything because a new branch will grow in its place. So instead, I should relocate the tree to get the branch out of the yard and prevent it from happening again in the future. And that's what the devs need to be doing, right? Listen to the problems, not the solutions. And that's also the same as, you know, my solution. My solution of imposing a penalty or something like that on killing members of your faction is probably the wrong solution. The more I've thought about it, the more I've realized that having a negative motivation is not as good as having a positive motivation, right? Because gamers are optimizers. Gamers want to do things that are going to get them more stuff faster, better. And so instead of penalizing people for killing members of their own faction, if you could find a way to reward people for helping members of their own faction and working together with members of their own faction, then that's an even better idea. So again, if the devs had implemented my solution instead of just listening to the problem, which is the faction warfare system is broken, then they would have ended up with a suboptimal solution. And I'm sure that their dev team is significantly better than me at making fucking video. I've never made a video game in my entire life, but I've played a whole lot of video games, and I know when things feel like shit. And the faction system in this game, and by extension the PvP in this game, feels like shit. needs to be changed. But every time I bring up the faction system in this game, some absolute fucking dumbass tells me it's a GVG game. It's always been a GVG game. There's never been any faction system in the game. And I can't. That's like saying there are no wheels on this Jeep or there are no treads on this Jeep. Like, there are obviously treads on this Jeep. There was never supposed to be treads on the Jeep. The Jeep's never had treads. There's no treads. There's a fucking faction system right here, right? You choose a faction. This is not a cosmetic choice because you can get the cosmetics or make your character from either faction, no matter which faction you choose. So there's nothing cosmetic about it. There's nothing really gameplay related about it. So it must be a gameplay mechanic, right? There must be supposed to be factions. So if you think that the game was always designed to be a guild versus guild game, then you are not intelligent in the slightest. Your opinion doesn't matter anymore. I'm really grouchy. Really grouchy. About all the people on the internet. Yeah, so I've never really played WoW or consumed any WoW related content. So I wouldn't be able to speak to that. I mean, I know there are two major factions in WoW, but to me, WoW's always been a PvE game. Never considered WoW a PvP game. I figured that was probably what was happening, Charles. I figured. I almost said, text to speech or speech to text. I'm grumpy, let me tell you. Because this game should be so good. I mean, this game should be like out of control good. The social aspects of this game should be outstanding. Just everything about this game should be ridiculous and awesome. And it's not. And there are so many people out there with terrible, terrible opinions trying desperately to get the game changed into something and fixed in a way that just would break it even worse. I'm so desperate for this game to be as good as it could be. And every time I see those messages and every time I see those recommendations and I see just how bad they would end up being, it just hurts me. Hurts me on a deep level. Because I know that at the very least some of them are going to get implemented, right? Because we've already seen that. We've already seen freaking the PvE extension of the Deep Desert and the complete degradation of any viable PvP in the Deep Desert because of it. Because you can just run away. We've already seen so many things happen that have ultimately been bad decisions. because of what the player base is asking for. And I guess I've never paid attention in the past enough to see the impact that the player base has on how game development goes. I know I played a lot of New World when it first came out. I was part of a couple of beta tests and, um, saw how the game changed between the open beta and the final launch. And so I guess I got a glimpse of it there because of the removal of the PvP equipment scaling system and how that just totally destroyed open world PvP in that game. But I guess I didn't really think that player bases had nearly as much say, or that specific content creators seem to have a whole lot of say. There's a small subset of really popular content creators in the MMO space, particularly in the PvP MMO space, that seem to have a whole lot of pull. And I don't know that I've ever seen them give a good recommendation. Like every time it's garbage. And it is just making me so sad. So sad. Especially considering that a lot of the absolutely most popular games in the world are PvP games. Um, when it comes to MMOs and stuff like that, uh, I would say that a larger percentage of the player base is PvE. But if you want to bring new players into the MMO space, you're going to have to create some interesting PvP mechanics because most players play video games that are competitive. Call of Duty, Fortnite, freaking League of Legends, uh, a much larger subsection of players has played these games, partially because they're very session based games. And so, you don't have to spend tens of hours every single day or every single week playing them in order to succeed at them, or at least in order to feel successful within your rank. But also because people like to compete. People like to fight each other. People like to do that stuff, and they'll do it for no other reason than to do it. Right? There's no reward system. There's no risk reward system in League of Legends or Call of Duty or Fortnite or any of that. Right? You don't go into a lobby and then if you don't win the game, like lose access to a character or something like that, or lose access to certain weapons in the game or anything like that. It's PvP for PvP's sake. And so if you could find a way to, bring people into the MMO space and have, actually good PvP, then you would definitely be able to expand your player base. But you have to have good PvP. Right? It can't just be some garbage made on some bullshit system of griefing theft. The Landsrad system is a great reward system for PvP. And because the Landsrad system is such a good reward system for PvP, there is no reason at all to lose stuff when you're in the PvP zone. There's not even any reason for people to be able to steal your resources, right? Like, don't even drop your resources. Lose a little bit of durability. That's fine because durability is a big part of this game. It's a big part of the motivator to drive you to get more resources. But there is zero value because the point of PvP in this game isn't to take the resources of the other person. Because if you're equipped to PvP, you are not equipped to carry stuff. Right? You can't be both of those things because you can't have storage and missiles. So there's no reward, right? It's all risk. Nobody's getting the reward because nobody's getting the stuff. So the reward is just killing the other player. So if the reward is just killing the other player, why is that player risking their resources against the reward of nothing? Right? That's insane. And so the reward is control of the resources. You fight the people, you kick them off the resources so that you can have control, so you can go get a different ornithopter, or so you can call up your buddies who, have their scout ornithopters or their assault ornithopters or whatever equipped for gathering, and you can all go do the things, right? Go get all the resources. So there's no point in dropping stuff. There's no point in any of that. There's no point in dropping your blueprints or your schematics or whatever. I mean, I understand that they want to do the testing station thing where it's a PvP testing station, so, there's only a set amount of loot. But honestly, again, that's just kind of contrary to the point of the PvP. You want to have control over that testing station, not the rewards of that testing station one time. Actually, honestly, the testing stations kind of don't fit with the PvP loop in general. And I almost feel like maybe they should be PvE safe havens within the PvP deep desert. Like I go into a testing station and then, I don't have to worry about PvP and I can just go run through and get my loot. But I maybe have to go through the deep desert to get there to some of them. I don't know. The PvP stuff, the non-large scale PvP stuff seems really unnecessary to me here. Because it's so much, it's so designed around the faction system. It's so designed around, our faction controlling this spice blow, our faction controlling this large set of resources, our faction controlling these control points. And so I don't understand where that personal PvP situation comes in. I don't get why that's happening. Why am I fighting over personal rewards inside of this zone when really I need to be fighting over faction rewards? I don't know. It doesn't make any goddamn sense to me. It's a problem. I think we got way too active about the risk versus reward system in this game. I think everybody got a little too much of a hard on about killing people for stuff. But the only time that I've seen solo PvP going is at the shipwrecks. I mean, I've only been solo PvP'd. I've lost 2 vehicles to one other person. But the problem, and I had this conversation yesterday about why everything in Dune feels like griefing, right? Every time you see somebody get killed, specifically if you see somebody who's equipped with storage on their ornithopter get killed, almost every time they say, somebody was griefing them. And it's because this game is designed for faction PvP, but there is no faction. And so every time you get killed, it feels like griefing because the intention wasn't really for combat to end in death. when you get attacked and you're in an inferior position, the intention of this game's gameplay is for you to retreat and either come back more prepared to try and push the people who pushed you off of a resource back off of that resource, or to leave it to them to own. The intention and the design of the game has never really been about destroying enemy vehicles or killing enemy players. It's entirely about who has control over those resources, and chasing an enemy very, very far beyond the edge of that resource space doesn't make any sense in that context, right? Because you then abandon the resource you just won the fight for to go chase that player. But because there's no faction system in this game, controlling those resources is A, almost impossible because the resource areas are too large and they're too spread out, and B, only has value within your guild. So it just has devolved into this kill on sight shit show. And everybody's running around with the intention of killing people instead of the intention of controlling resources. It's just not, it's not working. It's not fun. It's not interesting. It's not any of that. It's just feels like griefing. You know, base raiding would be super cool if it was about getting rid of an enemy faction's bases near a large resource deposit. I mean, imagine if one faction went out into the deep desert and found a good stravidium and titanium vein and set up some refineries, right? A couple of different guilds with a couple of refineries and stuff like that. You can take over another team's base, which is worth an insane amount of resources, right? Because if they've got even medium refineries, but maybe they've got large refineries out there, if you destroy their sub-fief console and place your own, you gain control over all of those buildings that they placed out there, all the resources that they put into that. So if they're putting in lots of resources, because it is absolutely better to go out there, put those resources down, and then, you know, refine or whatever from there and then move stuff, then you actually create this sort of dynamic place to go fight over, right? You've got maybe lots of bases, and then you've got, you know, bases that are accommodating for small groups like solos or duos or, you know, quads or whatever. And then you've got big bases that are being run by big guilds, but they're all kind of coexisting together because they're part of the same faction. The next faction comes in, sees all these bases, gets together, makes a plan, and then they come in and they start raiding these bases of all these different sizes so that they can take that over, so that they can now have the infrastructure to do that mining, right? So now you've got to keep people patrolling. You've got to keep people who know when there's going to be enemies around. You've got to ally. You've got to, you know, actually be communicating with your faction so that people can be there to defend. Then you don't just defend your base, right? You've got to defend all of those bases. And it becomes this huge push-pull war system. Instead, right now, it's just guild battles. And a guild, honestly, even a 32-person guild can't really maintain the entirety of one of those large stravidium or titanium or whatever places. They can't mine all of that by themselves, really, and they don't want to, right? Because it's more resources than they need. And it's more effort than they're going to want to put in, right? Some of their players want a PvP, not PvE. And so you create these hotspots, you create these beds of focus. But that's completely gone right now. None of that exists. Because there's no safety out there at all. Right? Every other person you see is trying to kill you. And that's not really all that fun. But we'll see. We'll see how the game develops. We'll see how the players develop. You know, some of the issue is that the players need to learn how to play the game, as well as the devs learning how to encourage the players to play the game properly. And that's a huge deal. Developers have taken way too much of a step back position in way too many games for way too long. Gotta put your thumb on the scale, right? The deep desert right now is just this complete free for all where literally anything goes. And that's insane. There's no structure in that. It would be like a League of Legends match where the team that you picked didn't matter. And you were just out there to kill all of the other 9 players. So you like pick a team, and then you join that team, and then you decide on which role you're going to play based on your team mechanic. But then you don't actually have to work with your team in order to win the game. And really killing your teammates is going to help you win the game better. That's the situation we're in right now. And unless you put your finger on the scale or your thumb on the scale to make it so that working with your team is how you actually win, then nobody's going to work with their team, because who wants to rely on other people if they don't have to? Right? Nobody would do that. Let's go get some more fuel cells. Because we need them for those new generators. We have so many generators, and I'm just going to keep putting those regular generators in there because they require so much less effort to keep fueled. So much less effort. It's insane. Barely have to do anything to keep those things fueled. But that's okay. I got a lot to still get my base in a good spot. I've got hundreds of hours of gameplay still here, where I can work on making my base bigger. I can work on, getting my infrastructure right. I can work on doing all this stuff. It's all primarily in the PvE zone that requires very little spice melange. It does require some, but it requires very little, so I don't have to go out into the deep desert all that often. And I don't have to interact with those systems until those systems get another pass and maybe get improved. So we're going to spend most of our time probably in the PvE area. I've still got lots of quests to do. I've still got lots of gathering to do. I've still got lots of, just things on top of things on top of things here. So we're not wanting for content at this point. We're not wanting for motivation to play the game at this point because there's lots of it. And honestly, I think I will enjoy the game more if I stop worrying so much about whether or not I can go out into the deep desert and do, honest to goodness deep desert things until that faction system is fixed. Because while I do enjoy playing by myself, I do want to be working towards a common goal with other people. I just don't want to be tied to those people in any sort of direct way. I want to focus on the Landsrad, but I also don't want to have to try and convince people that my strategy for the Landsrad is best or whatever. I just want to go do my thing. Work on stuff the way I want to work on stuff. And let everybody else do the same. Team up when it suits me. No expectations. Do what I want. I guess what I'm specifically trying to say is I want and gates, not or gates. Is probably the best way for me to put it. I don't want to feel like I need to team up with people when those people feel like teaming up. And I don't want to feel like other people feel like they have to team up with me when I want to team up. I want and gates where I want team ups to happen when both people want to team up. Because or gates are stupid and they foster resentment, and gates are great even if they create fewer instances of people teaming up. That motherfucker just shot me. So I keep getting shot while I'm in my vehicles by the NPCs. I wonder if you can just shoot people in their vehicles. Like, could I just shoot a person in the ornithopter cockpit and, like, murder them with a rifle or something? That needs to get tested out and also needs to be a thing, right? Not only should I be able to do damage to an ornithopter with any weapon, I should also be able to just straight up do damage to the player inside. Because let's face it, that's one of the best ways to get rid of a flying vehicle, is just shoot the motherfucker in the cockpit. At least in video games, right? That's not really a viable option in real life, but totally a viable option in a video game. Very common, viable option. Dude, it's windy as fuck outside. Either it's just way windier in general everywhere nowadays, or I am way more sensitive to the random bangings and whistlings of windy weather. Either way, I'm not happy about it. We have 6 days worth of fuel in our jennies. I'm talking about. And in here for a whole nother week. We have an extra 665 power, which means easily 4 more. Right? That's 4. 540. Yeah. So if I put 4 more of these up, it takes 540 power to put up 4 more of these large cisterns, which would give me the 10 I want, which would give me 1.5 million water per day. And that's why I decided to just go with an absolutely metric fuck ton of these. And I actually need to, I think, make a generator room that I can move all these into because they're ugly as shit. But it takes 20 of these to make 10 of those large water catchers. So I have 1, 2, 3. Let's see, I got 3 times 4 there, so that's 12. And then I've got 1. Well, whatever. Let's just fucking count them. Or can I just see? Does it tell me? Oh, yeah, it does. Let's just do a little math here. 2,475 divided by 75 equals 33. Yeah, so I got 33 of these little generators right here. And they're eating up 33 of my 80 production facilities. But I have 80 production facilities, and I'm a solo. So that doesn't really hurt anything. Think I'm talking to myself, maybe? Who knows? Nobody knows. I certainly don't. Oop, talking to myself again. Definitely want to be getting an assault thopter. I honestly, it hadn't occurred to me that I could have a scout thopter with rockets in my backup tool and just plunk that bad boy out when I got attacked and go beat on people with it. So probably I'm going to start bringing an assault with storage into the deep desert and then just bring my scout. So the problem there is that you leave yourself in a position where you can't get your assault out. Right, you just have to leave your assault there, and either you have to win the fight or you lose the assault ornithopter, which kind of sucks. but it does at least give you a chance to defend yourself. Hmm. Weapons of war. Hmm. Just need to talk to a ornithopter pilot to. Interesting. Let's go do these bad boys. Might as well do my trials, get my XP. So I'm level 84 right now. It'd be nice to be a higher level. Have some more skill points. Generally be better off. There's the third trial. It's over here somewhere, isn't it? That's the second one. I think the third one's like right here. I don't actually know. Zoom. Rolling down the street, smoking Indo. And on gin and juice, laid back. Eve of the Lost Pilgrim. Bleh. Bleh. You're all dead. What you get for defiling the Fremen, whatever they are, temples.
Another altar destroyed by the Emperor's zealous dogs. So much wasted in the pursuit of this pogrom. So much lost. This altar seemed to depict Fremen being separated from their families. Enslaved? I could only decipher a few words. Slave cribs, Hajj, and oddly enough, the name of a planet. Bela Tigise.
I thought that said smuggler's butthole. That says smuggler's bolt hole. I was really worried there for a second. Let's try going up here, see if this is the answer. Since I don't really remember where this thing is. Kind of considering just going ahead and making Mark V wings for my ornithopter, since I'm going to end up getting less, spice and plastanium stuff and stuff like that than I had previously intended, at least for a little while. I want to go ahead and, clear every quest and get my character all the way up, because there's too many people out in the deep desert now that are already in that position, right? They're maxed out, they've got decent builds going on, they have all three of their skills. Going out there and trying to compete with those folks is a terrible idea. But also going out there before they fix the faction system is a terrible idea. What really concerns me is I haven't seen anything other than the fact that we're getting a third faction at some point about them fixing the faction system at all. And I'm not getting any indicator that they even think there's a significant problem with the faction system. And that scares the crap out of me. And we're going to crash. It actually seems like my whole stream is kind of fucked up right now. What's going on here? You know what? It might just be a whole not streaming day today. I kind of woke up this morning with the intention of maybe taking the day off. And then I decided, no, I really should stream, but seems like maybe that's just not a good idea. I think we're just going to call it for the day. Sorry, don't mean to get everybody's hopes up. We'll be back again tomorrow. I haven't. We've put in almost 200 hours in just 3 weeks of streaming since the game launched, so it's probably a good idea just to go ahead and take a day. So we're going to do that. So thanks, Charles, for stopping by, saying what's up. Thanks for listening to me rant and rave about the current state of the game. I'm going to go ahead and probably play a little more today, but just kind of chill and relax and make a little progress, and we'll be back tomorrow. So we'll see you all then. Have a great day.